So the results of the second autopsy on Trey Reed has came out, and it came out that all of you white people who were trying to sit here and make it seem like this young man was not strange fruited, it came back that he had blunt force trauma to the back of his head. Now, why the hell would he hit himself in the back of the head, then put himself in a goddamn tree? You know why? Because that doesn't make any sense. Y'all waited until he turned his back before you cracked him in the skull, the back of his skull, and then you put him in that tree to make it seem like he did it himself. I said this before, and I will say it again. Black men do not strange fruit themselves on trees. Repeat after me. Black men do not strange fruit themselves on trees, especially in America. It don't happen.
Boy. So we got to continue our coverage of this Trey Reed story. Okay, the story about the black student that was found hanging at Delta State University. Now, some of you guys may be asking, why is it that you continue to talk about this story? Why is it that you continue to cover this story? It seems as if this was a suicide, right? And it was unfortunate that this student decided to take his own life. At this point, the story should be over, but it's not over. And one of the reasons why I want to follow it until the end is because stories like this are a great example of how black leftists, right, and leftists in general, but again, specifically the lies of a black leftist are like lies I've never seen before, right? Like, I'm just documenting all of the lies at this point that these people continue to tell because they just cannot cope with reality that this student more than likely committed suicide, okay? And we've already talked about some of the initial lies surrounding the story. Like from the beginning, these activists came out and claimed that Trey Reed was found with broken bones, limbs, like he was beat up or something like that. The black coroner, the black police chief, all the black people involved with investigating this basically said, nah, none of that happened, right? That none of that stuff was true. Okay, the state autopsy found that no foul play was involved, but the activists couldn't accept that because they've convinced themselves that, no, Trey Reed was lynched by a white mob, right? They've convinced themselves that this is what happened, and there's no amount of proof or the lack of proof or evidence that will convince them otherwise that their conclusion isn't correct, right? And again, this is why I'm documenting this, because I just want you guys to witness the lies and the mental gymnastics that a leftist will go through in order to push a narrative, especially when you talk about this race narrative, where apparently the supply of racism is so low and the demand is so high that they have to make up stories, right? They have to wish and hope and pray and to look for racism, right? Which is essentially what this story has become. The second big lie, Colin Kaepernick and Ben Crump getting involved to get a second autopsy, because again, they can't accept any conclusion outside of white lynch mob, right? And we're still waiting for the results of that autopsy. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because now that is also bringing up a lot of questions about why is it taking so long to get the results. Again, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But you had activists like Willie D and others go on the internet and spread more lies, claiming that this autopsy concluded that Trey Reed was hit in the back of the head, right? He had blunt force trauma to the back of the head, that he was beat up, right? This is evidence and proof that he was lynched. Despite the fact that that autopsy has not been released, and the family has come out and said, yeah, those rumors aren't true, right? They aren't true. Now we have another lie, right, that is coming out, which is that days before Trey Reed was found hanging from a tree, apparently he had gotten an argument with some white Charlie Kirk supporters on behalf of some female. Some people say it was his sister. Some people say it was some other random woman or female. And that's why he was hung, because he was arguing with Charlie Kirk supporters. Yes, this is the new blue and on conspiracy theory from this story that, again, it just blows your mind, this type of stuff these people come up with. When the first two lies don't work, you just lie more, right? Just lie more. And that's what this story has become, a bunch of lies.
And then Trey Reed, who the first autopsy said that he took his own life, that there was no foul play. And thank goodness we got a second independent autopsy, which is now showing blunt force trauma to the back of his head. And we're now finding out that he got into an argument just days before that with 4 white kids while he was defending his sister. is not just enough for these two to get the justice they deserve, to find out who actually caused that car accident and who actually hung him. But the cops that involved in these cover-ups and they involve of blaming young black men for this need to be held accountable, need to be charged.
Trey Reed didn't hang himself. He was murdered. Shout out to Colin Kaepernick for providing the funding for that second independent autopsy for the family, because it's very revealing, and we're getting new details and information about the Delta State University student that was found hanging from a tree on September 15th. He didn't take his own life, and it wasn't a real hanging. So the autopsy that was funded by Colin Kaepernick reportedly finds that Trey Reed did not die by suicide. Family attorney Ben Crump has yet to confirm. Not only did he not hang himself, new information and new details are showing that there may be blunt force trauma to his head, and that days before he was found, he was in an altercation with some Charlie Kirk supporters. Turns out that Trey was online defending a young lady who had said some things about Charlie Kirk that had upset some Delta State University students. And he had gotten into an altercation online with 4 white men. 2 of these men attend Delta State University. Text messages are showing. The second independent autopsy also showed and revealed that he was manually choked and strangled before any rope was placed around his neck, and that his bruising was not indicative of him being hung. That's not how he died. Details are still forthcoming. This is an ongoing investigation.
Now, this has been rumored. Again, this is rumored, alleged. We don't know for sure. But there's a massive rumor going around that Trey Reed was unalived by 4 white boys who were Charlie Kirk fans. And Trey Reed was allegedly defending a girl who had something to say about Charlie Kirk to them 4 white boys. Again, we don't know for that to be true. And that's the rumor that's been flying around all day. All day. I ain't see the mom confirmed it, the family confirmed it, or anything like that. But I tell you what, y'all better hope that's not true.
Yeah. So again, what do we have here? Lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you are an online content creator, right, you have a basic responsibility to at least attempt to get things correct, right? But it seems to me like, again, if you're a leftist, the standards just is so low, right? All you got to do is tell your audience what they want to hear. It doesn't matter the facts, doesn't matter the evidence, doesn't matter proof. None of that stuff matters. Just tell them what they want to hear, and that's it. You'll get a very large following. You don't actually need to tell the truth. You don't actually need to report based off facts, right? All you got to do is just say what they want to hear. What these people want to hear is that some white mob hung Trey Reed, and there's this giant cover-up, right? Black people in on it, right? Black people in on covered up for white supremacists, right? And, you know, Charlie Kirk is involved as well, too, right? Because, again, this whole Trey Reed story is only a story because of Charlie Kirk being assassinated, and then leftists immediately trying to find something else to distract from that, okay, to point to and say, listen, see, this is a problem in the country, right? This is a much bigger problem than far leftists assassinating conservative activists, right? Black men being hung from trees by a white lynch mob, right? Even though that doesn't really happen in this country anymore, right? It doesn't happen. But, again, they want it to actually be a thing, right? They desperately want it to be a thing, and you know it's not a thing because they're still clinging on to the story that clearly, in my opinion, is not going to give them the outcome that they're looking for. But again, it doesn't matter because for them, the outcome has already been determined. Everything else is just a conspiracy theory, right? Anything that goes against the outcome that they've already determined in their head is true is just a part of the white supremacist cover-up, right? Even though, again, almost everybody involved with this is black, including the guy that is doing the second autopsy that still has not been released, okay? Again, despite the leftists going online and lying about the results of the second autopsy has not been released, okay? And I got to talk about it because a lot of time has passed since the autopsy was done, and the fact that the results haven't been released should tell you everything you need to know about the results themselves. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Still no news tonight on the results of a second autopsy on Trey Reed. the Delta State student found hanging from a tree recently. You'll recall the man's death triggered wild rumors that have been labeled untrue by the Bolivar County coroner and the state crime lab. Now, new rumors have surfaced about a second autopsy on Reed. Tonight, Delta News reporter Dennis Turner separates fact from fiction and has this update on the case.
Ever since the discovery of Trey Reed's body on the campus of Delta State University, those close to the investigation have complained the rumor mill has worked overtime. The facts of this case, though, have come much slower. Perhaps that's why rumors have recently surfaced about results of a second autopsy. A Delta News investigation shows, though, that autopsy has not been released. Shortly after Reed's death came stories that he suffered broken bones and other injuries at the time of his death. A Bolivar County coroner and the Mississippi Crime Lab quickly disputed that and released information that they found no injuries on Reed's body. But conflicting information told to the family did not fill them with confidence.
That is a false narrative.
At this gathering in Grenada, an attorney for the Reed family listed all the early missteps in notifying them of Trey's death. So it came as no surprise the family hired well-known attorney Ben Crump and asked for its own private autopsy on the young man's body. We soon learned former NFL star Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights Foundation would pick up the tab. A well-known pathologist was chosen for that second autopsy. Dr. Matthias Okoye is the director of the Nebraska Institute of Forensic Sciences. This biography from the University of Missouri lists Dr. Okoye's medical degrees from the University of Lagos, the United Kingdom, residencies at the University of Kansas, the state of Maryland, and a law degree from Detroit College of Law. The report says Okoye is often called on to investigate controversial and high-profile deaths. Last week, the Jackson Clarion Ledger reported Dr. Okoye completed his examination before Reed's funeral last month, but that the autopsy report had not been finalized.
Yeah. So, again, this is what I find to be sketchy, right? This is where I'm like, there's some red flags here. It's been, again, about a month since that second autopsy has been done, and they still have not released the results, right? It still has not been finalized yet. Now, again, this autopsy was paid for by Colin Kaepernick. You have Ben Crump on it, right? 2 race hustling ambulance chasers, right? The only reason they even care about this at all, because again, Ben Crump doesn't care about a vast majority of black people that, are killed in this country by other blacks, right? When we know they've been killed by other blacks, he don't give a damn. He only cares when, again, it's police or a white person involved, right? Or they believe a white person was involved, right? He can make some money. He can grift. So you got 2 of the biggest grifters in the game on this, right? And they're funding this autopsy. Again, it's been at least a few weeks since the autopsy was done. Still no results. You got all these rumors flying around that have been debunked, and we still don't have official results. Why don't we have the results? Now, I got questions about why are they slow walking the results? Because if the results were anything close to the narrative that these people have been pushing out here, right? The narrative that they desperately want, I think that the information would have been released. I think that it would have been verified. I think that Ben Crump would have came out here and at least told us the preliminary results, right? That, hey, it's looking like there was foul play involved, yada, yada. Like, I really do believe that they would have said something, right? Because, this story right now is still somewhat hot, but the longer that time goes on, okay, the more that the story fades away. So, again, if you have something, okay, in order to keep public attention on it, and we know that's what Ben Crump wants, then, again, they would be incentivized to get the results out as fast as possible. That's if the results actually fit the narrative. However, if the results don't fit the narrative, right, the incentive to actually come out here and to tell the truth about what happened, well, there's a lot less of an incentive now because, again, the more the story kind of fades away, the more time that passes, you can come out here and quietly say, well, see, the second autopsy results found that there was no foul play, right? Which is likely the case, which again is why they're slow walking, in my opinion. They can quietly put that out there and it's not that big of a deal because people will have moved on, right? But see, if they put it out here now, it's going to be a big embarrassment. A lot of people are going to be looking, they're going to say, well, y'all hopped on this thinking that some white lynch mob killed this young black man, despite the fact that there was no evidence or proof of this happening at all, right? You didn't believe the black coroner, the black police chief, right? All the black officials involved, just to get another black man to tell you that there was no foul play, right? So again, that's why I believe that this second autopsy didn't find what they were looking for, because if it did, the results would already be out. Ben Crump would have already said something about it. The fact that they're slow walking this means they want the story to go away. They want the story to die down before they release the results, because the results aren't what they want. And the sad part about this is that they brought all this attention to this story that, again, that had no evidence and proof of any foul play from the beginning, right? Zero, none. But again, they wanted to play into this racial narrative, but yet you have tons of unsolved murder cases of black people happening around this country that none of these people care about, right? Think about how many black people are murdered every single day, and there's actually proof and evidence that foul play was involved, but yet none of these people, Ben Crump, Colin Kaepernick, any of these activists, none of them actually care about justice, right? They only care when they believe a white person is involved. That's it. That's the only time they care. Oh, we have to get justice. Even though there's no evidence. There's no evidence that any white people are involved, right? Any foul play, no evidence. But they want to put all their time and energy in this because they care much more about a black person killed by a white person than a black person killed by another black person, and making sure justice happens in that situation. Because apparently the value of a black life is tied to whether or not it is taken by a white person, right? That's the crazy part about it. These pro-blacks will claim that they love black people so much, but it seems like they only love the black folks that are killed by whites, right? And your black life is less valuable, again, if you're killed by a black person. And I mean, monetarily speaking, that would be correct. Because again, there ain't no money in talking about black people killing black folks, but there's a whole lot of money in talking about white people killing black folks. Or put it this way, theorizing about it, right? Because in this situation, it's a witch hunt. They're theorizing about it, but they have no evidence and proof to back it up. But they're only chasing it because of the potential race narrative. It's really sad when you think about it, but this is how disgusting the race grift has become in this country. Colin Kaepernick and Ben Crump rushed to get on this case, right, to prove that a white mob lynched his black student, but now they're slow walking the results, right? Why are you slow walking the results? You were quick to get on the case. You were quick to pay for the autopsy, to break that news, right? Now that you got the results, right? Now that you've done it, you don't want to release it. I think that the autopsy's done. I think it's done, right? I just don't think they want to release it. They didn't get what they were looking for.
But that the autopsy report had not been finalized. This week, the Mississippi Free Press also reported that despite what other, less reputable websites have reported, there is still no official second autopsy report on Trey Reed.
At this point, justice would look like transparency.
Meantime, the Reed family is not commenting on the rumors or the second unreleased autopsy. Dennis Turner, the Delta News.
Yeah. So again, I think transparency would be them coming out and telling us the results, right? At this point, again, they either don't have the results that they were looking for, or they're still looking for the results they're looking for, right? Which means they don't have the results that they're looking for. And they're desperately continuing to look and to look and to look and to look and to look. And that's why it's taking so long, because they haven't found anything, so they just continue looking, right? I don't know. But again, my gut feeling just tells me that, this autopsy is not going to work out the way that these activists think this is going to work out, but we're going to see. I think at this point, these activists should be demanding transparency from Kaepernick, right? They need to demand that Kaepernick deliver the goods, because again, he was quick to jump on this story, right? And now all of a sudden they want to slow walk the results. So I think something fishy going on here with this second autopsy, but we will see. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.